Hello, dear friends. Today we're going to talk about one of the most powerful phenomena of the present world that indeed influence the life of the many of the countries, and it didn't influence the policies of different countries. But at the same period of time, this is one of the most ancient phenomena of the our civilization. What are the pros and contras to international migration? What hardships does it brings to many of the societies, and what actually is the impact of migration on the policy making, on economy, or social life? Let's talk today. But before we start, I want to show you a few videos showing different characteristics of migration and how we can understand it in the different perspectives. So let's see them.
If you zoom into Morocco, you'll see a tiny wedge of land that stands out from its surroundings. This little bit of land is surrounded by one of the most fortified borders on the planet. Right outside the border, you'll find makeshift forest camps, where people spend their days and nights evading the police and preparing to rush the border, usually in large groups, with hopes of jumping over and stepping foot on this land.
Il y a des autres qui sont blessés, qui sont entorcés, il y a d'autres même qui perdent la vie encore, pas facile. Je peux avoir peur, mais quand l'occasion se présente, la peur, je ne calcule pas.
This peculiar scene plays out because this piece of land, while in the continent of Africa, is actually a piece of Europe.
I will stop right here, and if you are interested, so you can see the video. Indeed, this is a part of Spain in Africa, and you notice probably all these people who are trying to engage from the territory of Africa, from Morocco to Spain. And here is the video of Budapest in 2015, right after the Middle East and Syria crisis and the flow of the refugees to the European countries. So let's see it.
7 o'clock in the morning in the rush hour in Budapest. The bus stop, the train station, and here's where there must be several thousand are sleeping. They extend right the way under that concourse there. Here are the temporary portaloos. Just going to try and head down there now. Oh my goodness.
So this is a metro station.
Remember, this is a European capital city.
Yeah, indeed, this is a Budapest. No, I will stop here right now. If you're interested, you can see the video later. And here also you'll see a video about the ship that was tangling with the migrants, and it's happening in between the borders of Libya and Italy, of Sicily, the same year 2015.
Easy! No! Come here!
Target ship trying to actually rescue people because the ship had to go up. Unfortunately, this is not by the decree. So we have a number of cases that actually looking for the human rights your account that is connected to this like floating
Take to the boat!
or special motive near the target. So the targets and other ships try to rescue people, and this means that people have the chance to rescue and support the refugees specifically. So some of the ships they were doing it right now.
Only one!
Really crazy. Now I want to show you one moment here. The person is standing, the other person standing here, and while they are coming, trying to identify if the person is not a pilot. Because this technology exactly of intelligence is one of the technologies pilots use to look at come to so the last video that I want to show you is actually the situation about the economic influence of the migrants. So let's see it.
Here in Berlin, Chancellor Angela Merkel's cabinet is due to approve legislation that should help skilled workers from outside the European Union find jobs in Germany. The country urgently needs people to fill more than 1 million job vacancies. Now, the proposed law would simplify the process for recognizing professional or vocational training degrees from abroad. It would also eliminate the requirements that employers have to check whether German nationals are also available to fill the vacancy. And it would allow qualified non-EU nationals who do speak German to live in the country while they look for work. But what about asylum seekers? Should qualified migrants who've been denied refugee status be allowed to stay if a company wants them? DW's Yalda Zarbach met an Iraqi who has skills and wants to use them here in Germany.
Firas Al-Kafaji is nervous. He has to give a presentation to the whole team today. The 40-year-old Iraqi is an apprentice at an IT company in Cologne. Like most of his colleagues here, Al-Kafaji has only lived in Germany for a few years. They hail from Syria, Iran and Iraq, and they all came to Germany as refugees.
This is a great chance for me. It's difficult to get a job training position here.
3 years ago, Al-Kafaji's request for asylum was denied. His official status since then has been what Germany terms tolerated right to stay. This apprenticeship will give him a chance of staying longer. The skills he's learning are in demand here. There are 80 to 100,000 positions in the IT branch alone that cannot be filled due to a lack of qualified workers.
Up until now,
I will stop here, but
or if I have a job to fill,
but actually you can see that there is, at least it was a big need, and there is a big need in these migrant workers, even refugees, even in very specially centered economies like IT industry, that is very difficult to get in for non-professionals. So here we can see different eyes of and different faces of the migration being a problem for the many of the governments because of the uncontrolled or illegal entrance, being a threat to human life and being a threat to human rights due to the conflict and due to the attempts of the illegal and uncontrolled migration that is really risky. But on the other hand, this is a possibility for the businesses to get people that are in demand, especially in the countries of the higher income and in the developed countries. So let's see today, what is migration actually in the theory? What are the types of migration? What are the global migration effects? What we can see interesting, like trying to rethink migration in the present perspective, and how migration shapes the economy, politics, and the present society. So let's jump in and see. Actually, talking about migration, we should take into account that this is a new phenomenon. This is one of the oldest phenomena ever existing in the world. Because actually our civilization was built due to migration. Here there is a very lovely map from Encyclopedia Britannica that is showing different stages of the migration, and we know with you that the human civilization is supposed to come from the Africa, going to the Middle East, then going to the Asia. So these were the natural flows and until the recent times. So for people, it was, for the human civilization, it was very natural to migrate and to take into control different territories, mainly because of the lifestyle, finding a good territory to live in and finding a empty territory to live in. And definitely with a building of the cities and later with the establishment of the states, we can see that our understanding of the migration was changed a little bit. So what we understand right now by migration, this is naturally the permanent change of residence of a group of a person or by the group. And United Nations defines migrant a person who stays outside of their usual country of residence for at least of 1 year. And this is really important because before 1 year, this is not considered to be a migrant. And actually we have different types of the migrants that we'll talk a little bit later. And the tremendous thing is that the number of the worldwide population of migrants is growing. So we can see here in the map by the World Economic Forum that over 3 so today in 2020, it was 3.6% of the whole world population, approximately 281 million of people were migrants. So all groups of the migrants, including illegal migrants and refugees or asylum seekers or labor migrants. And you see the tendency that starting at least since 90s and even before, this number is growing and growing. Well, you can also see the gender structure, and you can see that the majority of the migrants are actually people of the working age, and majority of them, they are male. That is also a part of the statistical data that is trying to understand the nature of these migrants. And there is a number of very interesting researchers that are showing that indeed males are going first, trying to come to the country to make their living. Only after that they're bringing their families, women and children. So in general, we understand this, that the migrant is somebody who stands outside of the country for at least 1 year. And yeah, this is a little bit older statistics. Today we have more than 3.6% of the world population. And the migration flows are very interesting research point in the different perspectives. What is interesting here, and what we should take account as a political scientist, that actually this is not only the will of the people. Definitely, this is the will of the people. But migration is more like social and economic and behavioral issue that also is a part of the state policies to the major extent. So we can see here in the map that in different periods of time we have different flows and major flows. For example, the major flow of the migrant, present flow of the migrant was definitely from Europe to North America, that was concentrated not only in the social issues or economic issues, so people were trying to get the better life, but also, for example, with the religious issues, because we know that a number of people were trying to go to United States just because of the religious beliefs. They were trying get out from the Catholic Europe, but also it is connected with the policies that were introduced in the new states that were usually easier to run their businesses and to run their lives. So right now we can see that these, to some extent, conditions, they still are present in the present world. So on those countries which are better developed, that faced lesser problems, we can see that the number of migrants is much more bigger, for example, than the countries that are still in the process of development or face some of the critical moments in their life. But not in all cases, not in all cases. So you can see a number of countries like, for example, like ours, like Ukraine, that is quite different. But also you can see here on this chart, they pay attention on the Latin America and pay attention on the on Africa. You can see here that they are not red. That simply means that not all people from the underdeveloped countries or from the developing countries are trying to get out to the better conditions, to the better states. No, we can see tremendous facts of the region migration. And we can also see, for example, pay attention on Australia and Canada, that there are some countries that have better conditions, and their policies is to bring more migrants. So in other words, what does it mean? In other words, that means that we have different factors that are causing migration, and we have different countries that at the same period of time are working as the migration source, and also that are seeking for migration. And in the greater perspective, out of this 3.6% of the global population, of migrant global population, the majority of them are legal international migrants. So this is important to see. Not all of the migrants are illegal. And actually this part of the illegal migrants is very, very low. And also the part of the refugees, not all of the migrants are refugees that we saw on the Budapest, for example, in the metro of the Budapest. You can also see that officially registered refugees, the percentage is low if you compare it to the general number of migrants. But yeah, this is what we should take into account, that this is official statistic, because yes, we know that unofficially we'll have a little bit the other migrants. So what are the types of migration? We mentioned a few of them. Actually, we have migration due to the military context and or invasion. So when the soldiers are coming, and if they're staying longer than 1 year, yeah, we could consider it to be migration. But also the facts of enslavement, when the person is brought as a slave to the other countries, and this is not the foreign understanding of the enslavement or very old understanding of the enslavement. We have today so-called like the income slaves, yes, and the people are challenged by the not possibility to find resources in their own country or city, so they need to move. And if they are working less than the like, let's say the $2 per day, that is considered by UN to be the line for considering to be a slave. So in that sense, we can say that we have the modern understanding of the enslavement. Then being a refugee due to the disaster, due to the crisis, due to the military context, yes. Or for example, the person who is searching economic or social opportunities, this is well understandable. And by the way, a few students in your group could be migrants because they were simply deciding to choose Lviv as the city of their study, and they moved to Lviv from the other cities and spent here the majority of their time, at least more than 1 year. Yes, and also the migration could be caused by the colonization. Yes. Colonization, opening new areas, new opportunities. And here we are talking about the colonization of Mars. So probably the new migrants, like interplanetary migrants, will appear soon. but talking about these different types of and causes of migration, and take into account different reasons of migration, people were asking, so what is the main influencer of migrants to play? And usually it is considered the negative factors in the country of their origin, in the domestic country, but not always. We see like this map of Canada or Australia that were very, very green, and that showed a little bit that sometimes this is also the policies of the countries that are interested to have their migrants. So here we are coming to the Everett Lee theory of migration. Everett Lee introduced this understanding of push and pull factors, and he had done it in 1966, but still until now, this is considered to be one of the classical understanding of migration. That actually have factors that are associated with the place of origin, and we have the factors associated with the place of the destination. And this are both a combination of positive and negative factors that are bringing people and that are pushing people. And the cause is different. So this can be the cause of the some of the structural causes like crises or the policies of the country, but it would be also personal factors like seeking for the better place for kids or for education or even to get the job. And between this origin and destination points, as you can see here in the chart, we see the intervening obstacles, yes, that do exist and that usually prevent people from coming from the origin place to the destination place. So what Everett Lee introduced, he called that there are so-called push and pull factors that are actually enabling international migration or migration in theory at all. So what are the push factors? Can you name some of them that are pushing a person from the country? Yes, if we think about this, it's definitely poverty, war, natural disasters, crisis, and so on, so forth. Yes, so these factors that are pushing a person. What are the pull factors? Are the factors of economic opportunity, or for example, of political freedom, or better education, or better life, or absentees of war, or whatever that could be on the personal level or on the structural level. So here we should remember that these push and pull factors are playing the strong role at the same period of time. So there is not only push factors majoring. Yes, this is a combination, as we can see here, of both. And what is more important, that these intervening obstacles are also present. So even if we can see in the country that we have the majority of the pushing factors, that not critically means that the person will go to the other country. Yes, because sometimes these obstacles could be tremendously important that are stopping a person for the possibility to go further. So all these causes should be taken into account. And while working with the policies, we should understand that if you create even an opportunity for migrants, not always they will come, or not always they will come of the special type that you need because of the pushing factors that could be actually eliminated in the countries of the origin of people. And it could be obstacles that they will not manage to work with. And here, we understand that taking into account this push and pull factors and also obstacles that exist, they are enabled some called migration streams. And migration tends to be within well-defined streams. So it's not sporadical. Usually people are going to the on the ways and using the same ways as previously somebody has done. And this is classical waves. For example, if you take into account Ukrainian migration to North America, usually it is considered to be like 3 or 4 waves of migration. And what is interesting here, if we study the like diaspora studies more correctly, we can see that people were coming using the same waves, using the same streams that somebody was used before them. Why? Because it simply means that these obstacle lines are very, very low, and the people already know how to overcome them. So migration is going within the flows that are pretty defined, and that is important to understand. Very rarely we can see the other trends and the other flows of migration. And every migration stream has counter stream. That is quite interesting, that if the opportunity flow creates, the counter opportunity flow creates also, it's trying to stop it. So in that sense, if we start thinking about migration analytically, we can see and take into account the efficiency of the stream. And by the efficiency of the stream, we understand the ratio between stream and counter stream. Yes, so the factors that enable and disable. And the efficiency stream is high if negative factors at the place of origin were prominent in the development of the stream. So if we have these situations in the country that are causing the push factors, and if this causes are much more powerful than the factors that are stopping it, then we'll have the more powerful migration stream. But what is interesting also here, that efficiency of the migration stream varies within the economic conditions. So usually it is really high in the times of prosperity of the destination points, and vice versa. So the more, so the pull factors are playing also here, yes? So if the economic conditions are pretty good and pretty great, that usually we can observe, so there is a correlation with the migration streams that are becoming more and more powerful. And when we don't see classically the developing economic situation, so it's not so likely that people will go there. So a very classical and natural things, but exactly a number of researchers, starting from Everett Lee research of migration, are showing the same principles as we see them right now. So they are not changeable. This people behavior is pretty the same during the long period of time. That is quite interesting for us in terms of the behavioral studies. So but we are talking that sometimes countries, they take special policies to bring migrants, yes, because they're important for their economy, for their production. So what kind of the selections in that sense we have? And this process of the filtering of migrants, yes, making, I mean the legal migrants, of filtering them, of creating this pull factors is called the process of selection of migrants. So the selectivity could be both positive and negative. And by positive selectivity, we understand the selection of migrants of high quality. Yes, and the negative selection, this is the number of people actually of the low quality, mainly in the professional skills. So this is not the judgment what the person you are, your professional skills who are coming to the migrant. And migrants responding to positive factors at destination tend to be positively selected, and vice versa. So migrants that are usually responding to the negative factors at the place of their origin, yes, are considered to be negatively selected. And talking about all migrants together, the selection tends to be bimodal. So we can see the both positively and negatively selected people present, and they are at the same period of time. It doesn't mean that if you, for example, design this pulling factors and you are trying to get more professional skilled people, that the low skilled people will not come. So they are bimodal. They are working just together. You can't select only like the high quality professionals without bringing low quality professionals. So it's working like in that way. So, and degree of positive selection increase with the difficulty of the obstacles. That is very important point. And that is why these visa regimes and the difficulties in the migration regimes that many countries are taking as a part of their policies is working. So they're creating these difficulties actually to filter, to increase the number of the positive selections. Yes, and decrease the number of the low quality selections that are really hard for them to meet these obstacles. And the characteristics of migrants tends to be intermediate between the characteristic of populations. That is quite interesting because if the migrants are coming to the country, then they are not, for example, let's imagine the high quality migrants that are coming to the country. This is very rarely that they will come and they will take positions, the higher positions of the country in the general. So person by person, this definitely can be, but in the general, they are coming to the middle. So the best are coming to the middle, and vice versa. So that simply means that the worst low quality population is usually when they are coming to the country, they are also not coming exactly to the lower quality population of the country of which are they coming. Yes, so this is very strange construct, but in the majority of cases, in terms of the productivity, in terms of the quality, people are coming to the middle. That is quite interesting fact. So, and here we are coming to the typologies. So we are coming to the understanding that take into account this theory and the reasons of the migration, we can see the different types of migration. So let's start, we can see the displaced person. So the people who were fostered to migrate not by their own will, but because of the war, because of the famine, because of disasters. So something pushed them. And the push factors were much more stronger, for example, than the pull factors, because they were simply running away from somewhere. So by here we understand this displaced person. Part of them could be illegal migrants. Yes, because the push factors are so powerful that even illegally they are working with these people. So they could be other migrants temporarily, or for example, they could be granted an asylum in the new country. Yes, so at the end they can be brought back to their own country, or for example, they can get the asylum, or they can be citizens in the new country where they are coming. The other part and the major part are actually voluntary migrants. So the people are moving because they want to do this. And here, in the majority of cases, both push and pull factors are playing mostly. And for the, let's say, professionals, for the high professionals, these pull factors influence even more than the push factors in their own country. So this is a permanent move to work or quality of life reasons, or this is a temporary move for work or quality of life reasons. Yes, and in the majority of cases, they actually strive to take the citizenship if this is a permanent move. And in terms of the temporary move, let's say these are occasional workers that are coming for some period of time and then they go back to their own countries. But here, we're told that if the push factors are really strong and we have awful conditions of war or disaster or famine or whatever in the country, we could have a type of the illegal migrants. Yes, that usually are individual movers, or that simply decide to run away, or this could be organized movers as a part of the criminal activity. So they could be forced to leave, and here we talk about, for example, human trafficking, or for example, that they are organizing the special like lines, and they wanted to do it by themselves. They are forced by the factors, but they're not forced by the other people. And usually in this type of cases, they are working illegally. So if they reach the territory, they are working illegally. And the result is, if they actually meet police services or whatever, so they the result is usually deportation in case they failed to get the status of the asylum seekers. So usually these are the major types of the migrants like that we see in the present world. So voluntary or displaced because of their own will or because of the push of the other people, even in the criminal situations. And here, I just want to show you one video that is dating to 2005 in Germany.
Dana von Dębinska has been rolling out Polish fare in Frankfurt since 1999, 5 years before her country joined the European Union. Only now are her fellow citizens allowed to come here and work freely.
The world is for everyone. Borders are an artificial, man-made invention. Everyone should be able to go wherever they want. As long as they're productive, it doesn't matter where they live or what passport they carry.
Sentiments shared by the founder of Eckelmann, which employs more than 300 people from 30 countries, including at a Czech subsidiary. He demands just 2 things from his employees.
As long as they can do the job, and they have to speak German. In our company, we speak German.
Up until now, they've needed a work permit or their own business. Even so, more than 300,000 workers in Germany are from the 8 East European countries that joined the EU in 2004. That's more than 10 times the amount in France, which opened up in 2008, but less than the near 500,000 in Britain, which let them in from the start. As Germany's economy grows and unemployment tumbles, hundreds of thousands more Eastern Europeans may cross over the border seeking work here. Bad news for Greeks and Portuguese seeking sunnier economic climes, but overwhelmingly positive, says this man, for Germany and the country's immigrants leave behind.
As we have seen in the case of Polish migrants to the UK, many of them, perhaps most of them, do this for a certain period of time. And in this regard, actually, it could be beneficial for both sides. The Germans will get skilled workers who they need, and the Poles will get better trained workers when they come back.
Not everyone stands to benefit.
Every day, workers from Bulgaria, Romania and other non-European Union members further east gather on this street in the hope of landing casual work on construction sites and the like. It's clear that the opening of Germany's labour market has its limits.
Romanians and Bulgarians will have to wait till 2014. In the meantime, trades unions say pay for low-skilled workers could suffer.
In services sectors,
I will actually stop here. And I want to pay attention on this rhetorics. So this rhetoric should be very familiar for you, because right now we hear this rhetoric about the Ukrainians. But actually, these were the same argumentation and the same rhetorics for Eastern Europeans, for Poles, for Czechs, for Slovaks, for Romanians, for other people. Sorry,
Those citizens allowed to come here and work freely.
For this moving. So. Here we can see that this tendency and this theory of pushing and pulling factors and this typology is pretty the same. So nothing dramatically is changing since the times of the 2004. The only change is actually who is moving. Yes, so all these types of the influences, and all this logic of the push and pull factors and the efficiency of the migration flows, you can see it's pretty the same. So only the main actors are changing their roles, despite the Germany, because it really needs the migrants to be. And here I just want to show you a few charts that are actually showing the most countries with the biggest percent of immigrants, and definitely this is the United States. And we can see it right now. And recently Joe Biden, so he introduced the new policies of bringing more migrants just to recover United States economy out of the COVID lockdown. So predominantly we'll see the number of these migrants growing up, but also like Russia, Saudi Arabia, Germany, United Kingdom, and United Arab Emirates. You can see this are top 5 of the countries with the most number of the immigrants, of the people who are coming to and staying there. And at the same period of time, you can see the main suppliers. Yes. And here are India, Mexico, Russia, China, and Bangladesh, probably the top 5, and also Syria due to the conflict. And you have noticed probably that Russia is both playing as the main supplier of the migrants, but also the place where migrants are coming. So the population is with the highest percentage of the immigrants. And this is once more due to the different factors of push and pulling playing at the same period of time. So the majority, the number of the Russians, they're simply going somewhere to the world, to Western Europe, to United States, to China. Let's say at the same period of time, Russian migration policies also causing the possibility of the immigrants to come to Russia. That is why we can see both push and pull factors actually causing this situation when Russia is in the list of the countries with the most sending migrants and also receiving these migrants. But also what is interesting here that if we see the migration patterns, we are usually thinking about the migration towards the United States or Western Europe, but also there are very powerful migration trends that are happening in the regions, especially, for example, in the European Union that before COVID was all the countries has the possibility of the working migrants to travel and then to stay without the borders. We know all this, and this actually caused the big migration flows, even in the developed countries. Just simply the possibility of person to find a better job or to find a better conditions, despite the place it is. But the same processes are actually coming in the, let's say, in Africa. So here we can see that we don't have the great number of people that are coming to Africa, so migrants to Africa. But nevertheless, people from Europe and people from Asia are coming mainly to the labor reasons. But within Africa, Africans are traveling a lot. So that is also showing that once more, we are not only going to the well-developed countries, that the migrants are not always actually capable to overcome these obstacles to come in somewhere. But nevertheless, these push factors could be so strong that they push a person to find the better conditions even in the neighboring states. And some cities are really needing, and countries, they really need this flow of the migration. So here you can see a number of the states, or let's say the city capitals, that are they have the highest percentage of the migrants all over the world, and the majority of them are Arabian states. That is mainly because they are so developed with the industry of oil and gas that they need professionals to come. And probably the United Arab Emirates stories or Qatar stories that Asians are coming there, working there, and for example, in Qatar, and the majority of the Qatar-born citizens, they're simply not working in Qatar. Yes, they're bringing some other nations to work there. And the Vatican City, we know this little trick that 100% of people that are not of the Vatican origin, because there is no Vatican origin, so they are no all the foreigners that are going and serving there. But we're talking that one of the problems is actually uncontrolled migration that is out of the policies that country can't influence. So what are the main and uncontrolled migration threats? It's definitely refugees or illegal migration that we can't stop. It's just happening because of war or disaster or natural problems. Human trafficking, then the problem is with bringing germs and viruses, and we notice it because of the COVID-19. And but frankly speaking, that was happening for ages in different periods of the world's history. And also one of the threats is fears and especially economic and political instability that these fears of migration is causing to the country. So let us go inside and see how all these factors are playing. Refugees and illegal migration. So we see right now that out of the old people that were forcibly displaced in the world, they are of different types. So these are internally displaced people that are staying inside of their country, that are refugees. They had to run away to the other countries, and also asylum seekers. So the people that also were forced to go to the other countries, but actually they were trying to get some legal status. So to find the asylum, that is why we have this asylum seeker state. And what is interesting here, you can see that the number of these people is growing. So yearly, the number of these people is growing, and this is wild world phenomena because actually it's happening in different countries. Yes, it's happening not only in the countries of the Middle East where they face these troubles, but in the all countries that exist. And but in the majority of cases, indeed, we can observe refugees and illegal migration that is coming in the countries of the conflict. So you can see how, for example, conflict in Syria, the tremendous flow of the migrations to the other parts of the world, or for example, the ongoing conflicts in Afghanistan or in Somalia, on Myanmar, on South Sudan, that are causing this flow. So this is natural, very close correlation. That is why it is so important here for the countries to actually do the peacekeeping, to have very calm situation. Otherwise, we'll have the negative trends of the illegal migrants and refugees going all over the world. And this is what exactly EU met as the result of the conflict in the Middle East. So here is the migration chart in the 2015, right away after the situation in after the conflict in Syria in 2014 when the war broke out. You can see how the number of migrants was moving dramatically to the European Union. And here, what is interesting, you can see also Ukraine somewhere here, because mainly of the after the conflict, we can see the increase of people that were going inside the country. So these were internal migration. However, our employees, for example, were considered by Polish government as the migrants and as a refugees. So they were officially named that. That is why we see ourselves in Ukrainians, at least in this list. What is also important here, you can see that the number of refugees and the most of the countries, at least in 2015, they agreed to let these refugees in. And the Germany here was the main country in 2015 who gathered the majority of the refugees. But also you can see the countries like Hungary, for example, or Austria or Bulgaria and Greece, and France, for example, here in Italy. So the trick is that these were not the countries of the main destination point. So usually migrants used these countries as a temporary residence, like to get to the Western Europe or to the Northern Europe. And the last thing that should be mentioned here, you can see how the conflict situation actually influenced the tremendous increase in number of the migrants, but also the migration flows that are coming through the Mediterranean area. That is why in the majority of cases, at least until the 2020, starting from 2014 and 15, the Mediterranean policy was considered by the European Union as one of the most important policies. So they were really focused on that region because simply of these migration flows. That is why a number of programs and a number of the budgetary funds were spent exactly to these to the countries and within the Mediterranean Sea, directly because of the influence of the migrants. So, and in 2018, you can see that there were around 600,000 asylum seekers only officially, that were run to the countries of the EU, and more than 200,000 of illegal border crossings were only in this year. So we can see how the great push of migrants for European Union was actually a problem. And starting from the 2000s and 2017, you can see the increase directly on the map of the net migration rate. So first, here you can see in the 2000s that the majority of the migrants here, they were present in different countries, but they stayed probably in France, here in the Spain, but later they started to move to the mostly developed countries of the EU, and you can see direct increase in the number of the international migrants. That is why, once more, EU Mediterranean policy was the main policy that was brought by the EU due to the migration issues. That is why, for example, European Union was concentrating on that. And you probably remember like these challenges that existed in Ukraine, why European Union is not so concerned about the Ukrainian conflict, because at the same period of time, they face like these migration challenges that were created. So in terms of regulation of migration, what European Union were trying to do, and this is showing us actually the cases how states could behave within the illegal migration threat. So one of the important policies for the EU was to shorten this level of illegal migration. Yes, they wanted to control it, and this is very natural how the countries behave. So that is why they strengthened their visa policies. They create an action plan for illegal migrants in 2015, and also they started the program Frontex. And this is a program of the civil and military control of the border line. So there are simply ships that are in the seas, in the waters of the countries, and searching and stopping, preventing the illegal migration coming to their countries. Also, they introduced the new asylum seeker system that was a joint platform for military and civil collaboration. And that is why, for example, for the European Union, we see the need of the biomaterials and biopassports to be one of the main entrance point to the EU. So the old information should be codified there. So this was a new system that they actually brought and united all the countries after the migration crisis. And also they decided to pay externally to the budgets of the other countries, especially to the Turkey, to the Egypt, or to Morocco. So they should stop and prevent the migration flow. So they're simply paying to the other states. And in 2018, European Union was actually adopted the new so-called Dublin reform, or the new comprehensive migration policy. There were a new policy of legal migration that were making some quotas for the countries. So they introduced the quota system for the country, and this quota system was brought as an instrument how countries should control the asylum seekers, but also it gave the possibilities of the countries actually to make more control for their own borders. So from the one point of view, they were trying to unite the system, all the countries' system, and especially asylum seeker system. From the other point of view, they were strengthening their own borders and given the possibilities to countries to define their own migration policies. So here in these terms of the migration, so it's so vulnerable situation that actually to the greater extent over the control, over the collaboration, but European Union gave much priorities and powers to the national organs to control the migration flows. And also the plan for foreign investments in the infrastructure of the countries. That is why, for example, a part of the money that is coming to Ukraine, to Moldova, to Belarus, on the eastern coast of the European Union was spent actually to strengthen the situation on the border, but also in the reforms. So they were investing into the reforms, into policy reforms, the democracy running reforms all over their borders. So not only on the Eastern Partnership countries, but as I told, and mostly importantly, within the Mediterranean Sea countries. So, and it was a new comprehensive strategy of calming down the situation outside of EU. Yes, so we're just not stopping, but actually paying money. So a quite interesting logic that actually is showing how the state policies of the EU were working. So at the one point of view, once more, they were stopping and preventing illegal migration. On the other point of view, they started to create the systems of collaboration. So the joint system of control, of changing the information, of taking the same standards. On the third play, they were investing a lot. So simply paying to the countries for them to be okay on their borders. So countries were receiving money. In Ukraine, for example, were receiving a lot of help just because it was considered that we should be calm and calm down, not to cause the migration flows to the European Union. So these are both like preventing factors, but also economic factors were considered to be a part of the solution of the migration problem. But unfortunately, with the strengthening and with the protection of the borders and of the countries, nevertheless, illegal migration didn't stop. We know this, and the major problem is that within the arrivals to the European Union of asylum seekers, we also see the number of people who were dead. So these are official statistics in 2019 of people that were dead in the waters. And you can imagine how many of people were dead during their attempts to get to the European Union unofficially. So, and this migration deaths overall in the world was actually growing after each conflict. So here you can see 19 was officially dead or missing only 16 in the waters of the EU, but in 2016, right after, and in 15 and 14 after the conflicts, the number of people was much more higher. Yeah, and this is a very tricky question of the human rights that I want to bring you to the topic. So once more, they were strengthening their borders, but at the same period of time, this illegal migration is still present. And sometimes people use very tricky factors and tricky instruments to get to the territory of EU. And I want to show you one of the videos in German, but you'll understand the context. So this is the NGO that is called a Sea Watch. I met the leaders of this NGO in one conference, and they specifically concentrate their activities to rescue people, to help people in the waters. So they buy ships, they buy special team, and what they are doing, they try to keep people alive.
Help her! Help her!
Europa schottet sich immer weiter ab und lässt dabei Tausende von Menschen im Mittelmeer ertrinken. In den letzten 3 Jahren waren wir an der Rettung von über 30.000 Menschen im Mittelmeer beteiligt. Und mit eurer Unterstützung schaffen wir es auch in Zukunft. Bitte spendet jetzt oder werdet einfach Fördermitglied bei Sea-Watch. Ein Menschenleben ist unbezahlbar, Seenotrettung nicht.
Yeah, so very, very hard actual points here. And I want to show a little data for that. So what they exactly are doing, they were founded in 2015. This is a German NGO, and it conducts rescue operations of illegal migrants in the Mediterranean. So they simply buy these ships, they buy a team, and they observe the situation in the free waters. And we know that 3,000, at least judging by video, this is a video, I think, of 2018. So 3,000 of people were rescued. Why they were rescued? So what is the sense of the problem? So usually countries, they have the quotas, and every country has its quotas within the European Union. So that simply means if the ship or the refugees are coming, there is a danger for them to be returned to their own country if they doesn't fit the quota. And you see, you can understand that the quotas are not so high. And the problem is that sometimes those who are organizing these ships, so they're selling the tickets to the people, and the people need to pay only after they get to the European continent. Yes, to the waters of the European continent. And at the same period of time, if there is an illegal ship, so there is ships of the front ranks, European front ranks operations. So these are civic military ships that are present, and if they see a legal ship, they will simply come to this ship and make it go back to Africa. And to prevent this, sometimes I don't know how to name them, but criminals probably, they made these ships to sink, going under the water. So the people are simply finding themselves in the water, especially that is happening when some of the cargo ships or non-military ships or civil ships are going somewhere nearby. That is why at the beginning of the lecture I showed this video with the cargo ships. So, and this is probably 100% guaranteed that the people were rescued. And this is what the Sea Watch is doing. So they're coming to the natural waters and they are observing if illegal ships are coming and if there is no danger for the people life, because otherwise the people simply die in the waters. And why they are moving in the free waters? Because otherwise they will break the legislation of the countries. However, this is like the classical situation when they can rescue people and to prevent their dying, because in the majority of cases, it's really tricky. So what they are doing exactly in the terms of the legal norms, they are supporting illegal migration. And that is why this organization, Sea-Watch, and many others within the European Union that are facing extremely strong confrontations with local powers and local authorities. And Sea-Watch, they provide legal support to refugees within the European Court on Human Rights. For example, in 2017, they have a big claim against Italy that prevent the ship that was drowning coming to the territory of the Sicily, and actually 20 people died, so they were found dead. And the families of these people actually made an appeal to European Court of Human Rights, so this organization made a support. But from the eyes of the government, of the Italian government, these were illegals. They were simply coming without no documents, no rules, no procedures, so you understand how the tricky the case is. And what they're also trying, they're trying to get the support from the international organizations and countries. For example, in 2019, in January 2019, it was a big Malta case when 49 people were rescued within the territory, near the territory of Malta, and Malta actually arrested all of them. And the only influence of the EU, UN, and Vatican, they managed to let people free. Both this 49 rescued and also all the team, the crew of the ship of the Sea-Watch. So you can see here the contradictions between the national power from the one side. They were trying to prevent the illegal migration, but also the international bodies and NGOs that were playing on the separate side, pushing and showing the cases that unfortunately such regulations, they are breaking the human rights, the rights to live. And you probably remember from the video words that the human life is priceless. Yes, so why should some of the regulations of the country stop it? So please think over this question. So how we can treat these type of organizations as Sea-Watch? Are they doing good by rescuing people, or are they doing harm because they are breaking exactly the regulations of the EU and the regulations of the countries? And here in the 2019 was probably one of the major cases concerned with exactly this organization, Sea-Watch. So on May 15th, there was a Lampedusa arrest, so 47 illegals. And so the military police of Italy, and Lampedusa is one of the islands within the Italy. So they actually catched this ship, and they arrested all the team, the ship, and also Captain Carola Rackete. There was a very big appeal in the national courts. So they, if I'm not mistaken, for 6 months they were arrested. But what is interesting here, when there was a big research here in Lampedusa, and the citizens of Lampedusa were asked to answer the questions if they support the activities of the Sea-Watch to protect people and to make them free, even not in Lampedusa, but simply to keep people alive. And 61% of people say that they are against such activities because their city, their rules are much more important than the human rights. So human lives, sorry, not human rights, but human lives. So this is one of the very tricky questions, and please think over that, how we can treat them and how with the policy making we can come to such situation. And indeed, such type of cases are not alone. They cause a lot of clashes and between the natural citizens of the countries and the migrants that are coming. So this, not all migrants are calm, and naturally we should understand this. So I just want to show you one case that was happened in Sweden.
Welcome back to 60 Minutes. I've just returned from Sweden, where something happened that I never would have imagined in such a wonderful country. My crew and I were attacked. We had things thrown at us, we were punched and kicked, and my cameraman was run over. Unfortunately, Sweden has become a victim of its own humanity. By opening its doors and welcoming hundreds of thousands of refugees and asylum seekers from the world's war zones and trouble spots, the country is experiencing serious security issues. And it's not alone. The migrant crisis has now become so huge, many Western European nations are closing their borders. But that hasn't stopped the refugees coming in their desperate millions. If Greece has carried more than its share of the burden, so too has Sweden. A nation with less than half the population of Australia took in 165,000 refugees last year alone and is starting to buckle under the pressure. This is a country that's barely coping. Only 6 months ago, Sweden was proudly proclaiming itself the humanitarian superpower of the world. Now it's closing its borders to refugees without identity papers. And its neighbours are being even tougher. Denmark is stripping asylum seekers of valuables to help pay for their upkeep, confiscating cash and jewellery, basically everything except wedding rings. The message couldn't be clearer. Please, no more refugees. Is it refugee overload?
Yes, it's a refugee overload. That's a good word.
Just too many people?
Too many people, and too many people of the wrong kind.
Like many of his countrymen, Jan Hunnesson is calling time. This one-time school teacher and more recently political activist says Sweden is on the brink of an economic and cultural disaster.
The problem with a generous welfare state like Sweden is that we're very, very soft.
And this is an example, he says, of Sweden's too trusting acceptance of young refugees. Men posing as boys to claim special treatment.
This is an athlete, and he's called Sweden's fastest 14-year-old.
So he is said to be a 14-year-old?
Yes. It's a bit hilarious, but if you're 18 and above, you don't get the benefits that you get if you're under 18, and you can't be thrown out with the same kind of laws and force.
Will the generosity stop?
Well, if you call it that generosity to ruin your own country, yes, it has to stop, but I think we're still generous.
For all its generosity, Sweden is now grappling with communities of disaffected migrants who can't find jobs and have few prospects. The country's image was shattered 3 years ago when riots broke out in the Stockholm suburb of Husby. There are now 55 declared no-go zones in Sweden where police have to escort ambulances to ensure their safety.
Yeah, so I was thinking this.
And as we found out, the temperature is similar in the suburb of Rinkeby, home to mostly Somali
I will stop right here. And definitely this is to some extent rather provocative movie, because 60 Minutes in Sweden channel, this is very provocative TV show. Later you will see, if you're interested, you will see how the clash between the migrants and this group. But actually what is tricky here, the same story, regulations, and we are concentrated on the regulations. And the case is with Sweden that they spent almost 20%, at least in 2018 and 19, they spent 20% of their annual budget to help actually refugees. While Sweden usually was considered very, very open And starting from to the refugees, but starting from the 2017, so we can see year by year the growth of the people aggressions of the natural Swedish. And what is interesting, that also caused the actually the introduction a number of the populist, right-wing populist parties. They were trying to stop the migration, but at the same time there are clashes, and also this tricky situation with a person who told that the migrant who told that he is 14 years old, however he's much more older, just to receive a pension from the state, because if you are 18, so you don't have the right. So you can see that these clashes is one of the challenges that is coming from the illegal migration. The human trafficking is actually the second major problem of illegal, because usually this is unforced. This is forced by the not will of the people, yes, that they are forced to move. And there are different types of abuse of the human trafficking, like the sex abuse or the forced labor, or for example, involuntary domestic services, child labor, child, for example, soldiers, and other groups. And you can see that unfortunately, the majority of the cases, we can see the countries of the suppliers of these illegal human trafficking cases. So, and even in terms of the slavery, yes, so we're told that presently, indeed, we have the economical slaves that are present in the country. So they also be forced by the criminal organizations to be replaced to the other regions. And you can see here that a number of the people enslaved by the regions. Pay attention here of the Australia, it's just because this is the region. So Australia in New Zealand are not actually included, while here in the Southeastern Asia, they had indeed the tremendous situation. And also, this is not only the people trafficking, yes, but also the transplantation of donors. So the people are used, their bodies are used for the transplantation. And that is why they also sometimes hijacked people and moved to the other countries. So you can see here the transplantation rate activities in 2017 countries. And once more, this is the problem in the North America. This is extreme problem here in Africa, because it's there's also the schemes and flows of the illegal human trafficking or human bodies, let's say, trafficking. The other problem is a migration threat that is coming with germs and viruses. Because migrating from part to part, we also bring in like viruses and germs that are inside of us. And there is a beautiful team of, actually beautiful book by Jared Diamond, Guns, Germs, and Steel, that I do recommend you to read. And he's showing the number of cases of the human migration and actually the building of civilization. But I will refer to one story about the coming of the Europeans to the territory of the North America. So nowadays it is considered that at least coming of Europeans to the territory of the North America killed almost 90% of the indigenous American population. That was killed not by the wars that were much more later, but actually the diseases of the first humans that are coming to North America, around 50 to 100 million of people. And yeah, so even these first diseases were before the humans with the wars of Spaniards and came. And there is why, for example, there is a big mystery. So while, for example, when the colonization process started, there were not so many people present in the territory of North America. And actually the trick is in the number of the of people that were killed by the previous floatings of Europeans, so Vikings and Swedish people and other people. So you can see here on this chart that is presented in the book, so the number of people that were caught by the smallpox and other diseases in the first years of the colonization. And only after that, actually, the soldiers were coming and conquering this world. So, and this is a big tragedy at all, because this tragedy we actually can see right now with the coronavirus times. What we know by now that at the beginning of the coronavirus, actually 7 billion of the US dollars in the world stock markets were lost only in the 10 days of this lockdown that was happening in March 2020. And overall, so the lockdown, because of spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19, in 2020 caused the global economy slowed down, according to the Global Economic Prospectus, to 4.3%. So it was a really big, actually, crash, just because we use other flows, like we use other migration flows and enable this crossing all over the world. The same story that Europeans made with North America, like a few centuries ago by colonizing United States, not with the guns, but actually with the microbes and germs. And what is interesting here that international migration was changed a little bit by the COVID-19. So we knew that in 2020, according to the UN migration report, we had almost 281 million of the migrants in the world, that is 3.6% of the world population. And the 2/3 of that were living in the probably 20 countries. But it's interesting here that in 2020, because of the coronavirus, the global migration was slowed down almost to 27% that was expected in 2019. Or, for example, 2 million of migrants. So 2 million of migrants were unable to cross the countries, go to the other countries because of the coronavirus lockdown. And here, there is interesting that in 2020, the story with the refugees. The first thing that refugees almost, so in the world, there are almost 12% of all migrants are refugees. And this is tremendous increase in 9 so almost 10% within the last 10 years. But what coronavirus shows also there's some questions of the inequality, because 80% of the refugees, they stayed in the low and middle income countries, especially 50% of them in the low income countries, when only 20% had the possibility to stay in the high income countries in the developed states. And what is interesting that if we see how many money were spent to help refugees to stay, we can see to the major extent definitely there was an international help within the UN, within the other organizations. However, this low income countries' governments had to do something with these refugees. So this is mainly the question for the global community, how we can come to this problem. And indeed, this is a problem of the fraternity, let's say, and the global community, because in this crisis, we see that there is not only inequality in terms of the money or to access to vaccines, but also in such type, if we use like the postmodernism rhetorics, the access to the access to the help for the refugees was also concentrated, was also limited. So the poor countries, mainly they had to reflect this problem by their own. And the later thing is migration fears and instability as a result of the migration. So we can see that there are a number of the migration policies, and actually I love this chart because it's showing the walls, exactly the walls that are partially constructed or that are planned, yes, to stop, to prevent migrations. Not all of them are actually planned, but nevertheless, we can see that even states are trying to build these walls just to prevent people coming and staying in the country. That is a quite interesting thing. And also recently, the new data researches were introduced by the EU. So I just want to show you some piece of the research in the city of Milan that is showing that interesting tendency that even if the migrants are coming, they are concentrating in the different residential areas. And even counting people, we can see how they are present in not in the ghettos, but this could be also a problem with the ghetto. So you can see here in the chart, like the orange lines are Philippines and Chinese communities are yellow, and Egyptian communities are green, and Peru communities are red. And that's definitely caused some of the problem between the clashes with the natural population and the migrants, if they really live in the communities, so they keep themselves there. So there is a question for the policy making. What should we do even if we have migrants? Should we tolerate and because it's much more easier and cheaper, and actually people are coming to and staying in the residential areas, or should we redistribute somehow people? So what should we do with that? And the problem is, as I told, with the perception of the uncontrolled migration as a threat. And you can see right now that according to the European Council of Foreign Relations, we see that those countries that face the major migration flows, people consider it to be the top priority threat. And this number is growing higher to higher. So here there is a very interesting survey of the Pew Research Center that actually is showing that you can see that these countries, that in many European countries that face migration flows, so the people are starting to be more and more accurate about the influence. Actually, sorry, not accurate, but they become more and more concerned about the influence of refugees on their policies. So you can see that the number is actually growing, and this was the top choice, like that the refugees can increase terrorism in the country, or they can steal the jobs from the country. You see in the number of countries like Hungary, Germany, or Italy, this is one of the top priorities that the people were choosing during the interviews, and that exactly influenced the situation with economy, because migration fears is correlating to, at least to some extent, with the economic uncertainty. And here you can see on these charts in different countries, I will show you this correlation, that the migration fears, at least here in France, is probably the same, correlating with the economic uncertainty policies. So, and that is directly the situation when economy is not working properly, and there is a big risk of the crash. So people perception indeed influence in the behavioral sense what the economy will be. And you can see the direct lines in France. You can see probably not the direct lines in the Germany, but after the crisis in Arab crisis and with the refugee crisis, you can see that also in Germany this process have started. Almost the same in the United Kingdom. There is why the Brexit could be explained. And here in the United States, you can see that probably the same story. So people fears and perceptions about migrants indeed have the correlation. So it's not the reason, but it's a correlation with the economic uncertainty. And this is directly have the influence also on their perception of economic insecurity and the populist votes. So in the number of countries, especially with the right-wing populists, you can see that the migration rhetoric is becoming most popular. However, migration is not only negative, plays not only negative role for the countries, it also has a number of the benefits. So what benefits are within the migration? First, it is increase of development of aid that is coming from migrants to the origin countries. Then migration is a powerful labor force that sometimes countries need. And also it can help by balancing the aging population that is very critical for the countries with the aging population like Japan. So migration aid. Here, there is also very interesting research by the European Council of Foreign Relations that is showing that in the recent years, within the official development assistance that is coming both from the states and the international organization, the private flows of the private money of migrants is really high. So, and this money are simply spent in the countries. So this is the direct support for the people's countries. And even in Ukraine, for example, around 12 billion of hryvnias was received as a support from the labor migrants. And that is why migrants make significant these contributions to both to the host and home countries' labor migrants, illegal migrants. Because you can see here, according to the Global Compact on Migration, migrants sent home approximately 600 billion of the US dollars in 2017. That is much more than the official development assistance in the countries. And while they are spending 85% of money usually, so paying taxes, spending for the food in their countries of present use of the work, at least 15% they're sending back to their own country. So this is a powerful force. It was interesting also that it indeed influences the economic situation in the country. So there is a beautiful research made by OECD that is showing that the 1% of migrants can cause a growth of 2% of GDP in the country. And in the last few years, at least in 2007 and 19, here in the chart, we can see that this growth was happening. So there is direct correlation between the net fiscal impact of immigration towards the growth of the GDP. Usually this 1 point of growth of migrants cause 0.5% of the GDP growth in the country. So such powerful and force it is. And once more, according to the OECD, there is a research that presented you 1% of migrants can cause 2% usually of the GDP growth in the country. So this is very powerful economic force. Yes, usually in terms if it is labor and skillful migration. So migration indeed is a powerful labor force, and we can see that in the number of the European countries, at least EU is showing that the average annual growth of labor is falling down, and starting from the 2000s, they need migrants to come and work into this country, because without the migrants, so you can see the brain projection how the the labor force will be going down. And there are a few estimations in the different countries, especially in the Germany. So what could be the number of the what will be the number of the economic growth without migration and with migration? So a number of countries indeed, they really need migrants to work with them. The same story, for example, with the Canada. So you can see that there's also the prediction that migrants will cause the economic growth because the number of the labor forces is falling down in the countries. And here the percentages are pretty high. And overall, in European Union, according to the different estimations, they will need they will really need migrants, so they use these policies to bring migrants as a pull factors to their countries. And by 2050, according to the Foreign Affairs, 380 million of foreigner workers will need to move to the rich countries in order to make the to secure the situation with the labor shortfall. So the European Union will definitely use these chances. Otherwise, they will simply lose money. They need economy. Their economy needs this money. And here you can see that the countries actually there is a decrease in number of the population, and so for EU countries, in many EU countries, the increase in the number of population is due to the migration, especially in the small countries, as you can see in the Luxembourg, or for example, in the Cyprus or Malta, or in the Ireland. And what is also interesting here that according to the Fortune 500, so the biggest 500 companies all over the world are actually were created either by migrants or by the children of migrants. So you can see here the chart that is showing exactly the level of the biggest companies, big enterprises that were created by the migrants, and the majority of them were indeed happening in the high-tech sector, so IT sector, or energy, or finances, or retails. So that is why migrants is not only like the negative factor. And here you can see the biggest companies actually in the world by the place of their origin of their founders. So all over the world, but here where the stars is actually they created their potential in the United States, all of them. Yep. And finally, migration is a good balancer of aging population. It is especially critical in the countries that are going elder and elder. So you can see on this chart the growing working population and contributions of the migrants. And you can see that for the number of cases, the migrants will be the only source, like in the majority of the European countries, of the working age population grows. So that is why, once more, they need to regulate this sphere. They need these migrants, and especially the tricky situation is in Japan, when the percentage of the older population will be going higher and higher. And even Japan, as a classical country that was trying to prevent the foreigners to come in, now is changing their policies, now becoming more and more open, because they really face the problem of the working age population that is going down and will be going down closer to 2010. And there is a desperate need for somebody to work there. And finally, I just want to stop, finishing this lecture with the very interesting migration paradox. So this migration paradox, if according to the global migrant origin databases of the World Bank, so it's showing that actually the poorest countries exhibit a much lower level of immigration than more developed nations. So this is also misunderstanding that only underdeveloped countries are going somewhere. Not. Actually, all the statistics until now, this is a little bit older, but even until now, is showing that migration flows, powerful migration flows, are starting actually from the low, middle, and middle countries. So the country should be rich enough for people to understand that they could work somewhere outside of their country and have these opportunities to work somewhere and to overcome these obstacles that are between the countries of the origin and the countries of the destination. So take into account this, let us finalize with the advantages and the disadvantages of the migration, and stressing to the point that both push and pull factors are causing these flows, and they are both necessary to take into account. So for the advantages of migration, indeed, we can see that there is increase of economic growth and GDP, and usually, at least in OECD countries, 1% of migration is causing the 2% of GDP growth. There is also advantages, the more flexible labor markets, because migrants are taking these unpopular jobs, or sometimes if they have this positive migration, so selection, the skilled workers can come, but together with them, always unskilled workers also come in. Potential entrepreneurs, yes, we see that the majority of the companies, big companies, like up to 40% of them were founded either by migrants or by their children. There's a good balance to the aging population, and this also brings to the greater cultural diversity. So the people can understand different cultures, not stay concentrated on themselves. There are some disadvantages because GDP per capita can fall because the number of people will simply increase, and usually there is also a tricky thing here, especially with the low-skilled migrants. If they are working, they can't produce a lot, so this is the danger of the GDP per capita falls. So there is also potential fall of real wages. Yes, that was because of the low-skilled workers that are not so productive, and they're working not in the productive fields of economy. So they usually are taking very unpopular, low-paid and jobs, and so the skill is not needed there. So there is also increased pressure on public services, in health, in education, yes, because right now they're spending their money for the migrants, and here we have the Swedish situation that is showing that case. Fears and uncertainty that indeed can influence in the behavioral cases the economy, the expectations to economy. So the more let's say neoconservative in the terms of the migrants population is, the more fears and uncertainty and support of populist could be. And actually it could cause like the social disharmony, clashes between different parts of society from this rapid and unexpected migration, also ghettoization in different cities. So here we come to the conclusions that both advantages and disadvantages are present, but the main issue here, if it is uncontrolled migration, definitely we will see more disadvantages. This is very clear. That is why it is very challenging for the policymakers to study these cases and to understand migration properly. This is one of the major tasks, because indeed we can see that the migration flows are not going down, even despite the some pandemics that is stopping the countries, locking the countries in their borders. But indeed the migration is growing and growing, and we will see in the future the growth of the migrants, both legal and illegal. And this is the serious problem for the policy making. So that we will discuss definitely in our class. So thank you right now.